Hello, welcome to our assembly for today. Today, we're going to have a think about the subject of peace because when you see what's in the news, we hear stories about fighting in different countries, and it's really easy to think, well, that doesn't matter for us. It doesn't have any impact on what we do. And actually, it really does because we can't stop people fighting in other countries. But I've said this lots of times before, is that we can have an impact on where we are. And it's one of our global goals: peace and justice and strong institutions. So making sure that our school is a peaceful place. And it's like ripples in a pond. You know, when you throw something into some water, the ripples go out, 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 out. We are like those ripples. You have a small impact and you involve somebody in your game, you include somebody in what's going on, and it's a peaceful place. Those impacts, it ripples outwards. So we're going to hear about John Lennon today. Now, some of you might know where you've seen John Lennon from or where you've heard of John Lennon. Put your hand up, tell your teacher if you know why John Lennon was a famous person. Right. So some of you might know John Lennon was a founder member of a very famous band called the Beatles. Okay, so let's have a look. So John was a little boy born in Liverpool in the midst of a great war. From his crib, he could hear the bombs falling, but once he fell asleep, all he dreamt about was that one day there would be peace on Earth. His dad left to work at sea when he was 4, and John moved in with his eldest aunt, Mimi. They were often visited by John's mum, who showed him how to play the banjo and bought him his first guitar. And at school, John was a bit of a troublemaker. His grades were never great. Still, his teachers all thought he'd do well studying arts at college. All day long, he played with pencils and paper. So even if you don't do well at maths or English, John Lennon is a perfect example that everybody's got lots of talents. You might find it difficult sitting in lessons, but actually your drawing skills might be absolutely amazing. Okay, everybody's got different things, different skills. And John is a perfect example of this. John formed a band with some schoolmates, and soon a guy called Paul joined them. Paul was more into pop, while John was more of a rock and roll rebel. Together, they wrote the most simple and beautiful songs. They changed their name to the Beatles and started to perform at a well-known club called the Cavern, where everyone laughed at John's antics. One day, he even played wearing a toilet seat around his neck. There you go, there's the picture of them. So you've got a guy with a really good sense of humour as well. A stylish guy called Brian became their manager and promised to make them famous if they met 2 simple conditions. They exchanged their leather jackets for tailored suits and start behaving properly on stage. And soon after their first single, Love Me Do, was released, John, Paul, Ringo and George became the most popular band in the world. Wherever the Fab Four went, crowds of teenagers greeted them, waving signs. They were the first band ever to perform in a giant stadium. John couldn't wait to listen to 55,000 voices singing together. Still, fans ended up being more interested in screaming. He couldn't even hear himself sing because people were so excited. Lying on his king-sized bed, John dreamt of making a friend who didn't know about his band. Everyone knew of him as one of the Beatles, yet no one actually knew the real John at all. He met a Japanese artist called Yoko at a gallery in London where her work was being exhibited. Yoko gave John a card that said nothing but breathe, and they were together from that day on. After 12 albums together, full of some of the greatest songs in the history of music, John knew it was time to say goodbye to the Beatles. He left the band to go his own way, but he never abandoned music. So there's a very famous album cover with the Beatles on Abbey Road, and they're walking across the road or walking across the zebra crossing together. And I think it's Paul who's got bare feet, but in this you can see that he's walking off in a different direction to show they're going in a different way. Yoko and John welcomed the world to their honeymoon, setting up a peace camp in their hotel room. They sang a song from bed that became an anthem for the anti-war movement. And after a life spent trying to find peace inside himself, little John is still remembered as one of the greatest songwriters, the one who keeps inspiring us to imagine a world where all people live in peace. Now, in a minute, I'm going to share that video, that song, Imagine, with you. It's in the playlist, in the Assemblies playlist. And there's some pictures of John Lennon. He's a really, really famous musician and had a massive impact on people's lives. So one of the other things is that you might have seen in the news that for the first time in a couple of years, the Glastonbury Festival happened this year. And one of the other members of the Beatles, Paul McCartney, was the oldest person ever to perform at Glastonbury. He was in the Beatles. If you remember, it said that John met somebody who was into pop, into that kind of poppy type music. Where are we? Paul was more into pop, while John was more of a rock and roll rebel. So Paul McCartney was 80 this year, and as an 80-year-old man, played at a festival in front of thousands of people. So imagine the kind of legacy that these people are leaving because of their music and because of their way of life and their love of peace. Now, John Lennon was a massive icon. Lots of people saw him as being this person who really told everybody about peace. But you don't have to be famous. You don't have to be a pop star. You don't have to be a songwriter to talk about peace. You can be somebody that says, welcome to our school. You can be somebody that says, come and play with me. You can be somebody that says, I'm sorry. Or you could be somebody that says, it doesn't matter that you're grumpy. We'll look after you. Come and join in with us. So just like we keep saying, everybody's welcome at Wincham. That was what John was saying about the world. And his song, Imagine a world where everybody can live in peace, is still really, really important now. So I'm going to put two videos in the Assemblies playlist for you. One is Imagine, which is a beautiful song. It's really lovely, but it's quite slow. And then I'm going to put one of my favorite Beatles songs in the playlist, just because it's really good fun. It's really lovely to read. The other thing I should have said right at the start of the assembly is that I haven't used one of the Little People Big Ideas, Great Ideas, Small People, Great Ideas, Big Dreams, Little People, Big Dreams books in absolutely ages, and I just love reading them. So I thought I'd use that one as well. So there you go. That's the end of our assembly, but you've got two songs to listen to. Enjoy them.